Hello everyone. Can you hear me okay? Can I put something in the chat maybe? Never done this before. Right. I will get started in just a while. Give me a few seconds. Okay. Thank you, Flora, for joining. Hopefully a few others will join as well very shortly and then we'll begin. Right guys, you want to just say hi in the chat just so we kind of know who's joined? Also, I hope that you guys can hear me okay. I've never done a YouTube live before, so I'm very new to how this all works. Okay, I think what we'll do is we will begin. There's about 7 of you here right now, and hopefully more people will join as we get on. So basically, what I want you to do first of all, the great thing about having this live session is that we can interact with each other, right? So I don't want to be just me speaking to a screen. So if you guys want to put in the chat, kind of say, are you a medical student? Are you a high school student? Do you have exams coming up? That sort of thing, just so we can kind of get to know who is on live with us today. And it'll give me a good idea as to what I should be talking about. So if you probably know me because you saw me advertise this YouTube live, but my name is Heen. I'm a second year medical student here at Edinburgh University, and yeah, I thought it might be useful for you guys to have this session about studying and revising at medical school, and sort of how do you go about it. And I've asked on YouTube community posts, and I asked on my Instagram polls as well, that what is stopping you guys from revising. And I guess my main motive today is to give you guys a bit of motivation and sort of let you guys know that you're not alone, and then offer some solutions so that you guys can stop procrastinating and try and get through those exams. So that's really the point of this live session, and I hope you find this useful. Please do use the chat function because this is the great thing about doing this, okay? I could have just made a video on this, but I chose not to because I want your input. So yeah, please feel free to put things in the chat. Now, the first thing that I wanted to go over was like what sort of exams do I have at the moment? So right now, I've got basically three types of exams, all coming up in May, kind of spread over start of May, middle of May, end of May, and I've got anatomy exam, which is very common amongst medical schools, and probably if you're a medical student, you will have an anatomy spot exam, which is basically they show us cadaveric models and we have to kind of label things and know where everything is, which has been really hard, especially during COVID, because we've not had that access to cadavers. And I'm sure that's the case with a lot of medical schools. So that's one exam that I've got. So I'll be talking a little bit about how you can revise anatomy. Then the other thing I've got is an OSCE. So this is all about history taking, explaining advice, that sort of thing. So I'll talk a little bit through how you can revise that. And then also I've got my main knowledge exam, which I'm assuming a lot of you will have, depending on whatever your, regardless of whatever your degree is or whatever you're learning, you will probably have a knowledge exam. So we'll go over tips of how we can revise through that. Now, when I asked you guys what's stopping you from revising, the number one answer was your phone, right? Now, I think I can relate to this somewhat because, yes, phone is a big distraction, right? It's literally this little brick that it has all your social media on it, it has all your work on it, it has all your friends on it, it has literally everything, right? So it's really hard to stay away from it and just step away to do some work. And that could be revising for exams, but it could also be submitting an essay. It could be anything, right? So yeah, it is a big distraction. Now, what can you do about it? So here would be my tips, right? In my mind, I think of it as having three levels of self-discipline, okay? Because this is what this all comes down to, okay? It's telling yourself to do something and then seeing, can you follow through with that? And if you can follow through with it, then I'd say you have pretty good self-discipline. But if you can't, then I don't think that self-discipline is good enough, right? So I want you to rate yourself out of 3, okay? So 3 being this you're very self-disciplined. So if you tell yourself to wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, you will wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay, that's like a 3 out of 3 in my opinion. A 2 out of 3 would be, you follow through with most stuff, but you sometimes don't. Okay, and I think a lot of us would put us at a 2 out of 3. And then I want you to think 1 out of 3. So 1 out of 3, you find it hard to follow through with a lot of the stuff you tell yourself to do, and that's not where we want to be. So first of all, I want you to identify the problem, because once you know what the problem is, you can come up with a solution, and ultimately that will motivate you to do better. So if you are 3 out of 3, I want you to take your phone and you put your phone you chuck it on your bed, okay? Or you put it on charging, or you kind of keep it away from you, but not necessarily like away. It's like still in your sights, but it's not, directly in front of you. So that's one way, right? You take it away from you. Now, if you rated yourself a 2 out of 3 on the self-discipline scale that I've created, then I would say put your phone in a different room. So this time, it's creating an obstacle for you to go and reach for your phone, right? And when we have those obstacles, it becomes harder to go and procrastinate and use your phone. So if you're a 2 out of 3, I'd say go and put your phone in a different room. And if you rated yourself a 1 out of 3 and you really don't trust yourself and you think that, you know what, I'm still going to reach over for my phone, I'm still going to walk into the other room and grab my phone, then I want you to find someone who lives with you. And I'm hoping that all of you do live with someone, whether that's a friend, a flatmate, your family member, whoever it is. And I want you to go and give them your phone, okay? Because that's then you committing to someone else as well. And I want you to say to that person, look, I'm trying to revise, my phone keeps distracting me, and I don't know what to do. So can you just keep it while I'm revising? When I come down from my break, you can give it to me. And that's it. And it's simple as that. It's creating a bigger obstacle in you procrastinating. So I want you to think of anything that's distracting you and create more obstacles so you are less likely to go and use that thing that's distracting you. So that's one thing I want you to talk about. So I want you to put in the chat right now, was that useful at all? Come on, guys, let's use the chat. Yes, good. Anyone else find it useful? Are you guys all sleeping? Also, I don't want to take up too much of your time because, like, I feel like this is also a distraction from revision. But at the same time, I want you guys to use this as an investment into your revision rather than a waste of time. And I hope that after this, you'll feel more motivated to actually go and revise. I guess that's one thing. Fantastic. So I guess the next sort of number two thing that came up, which was stopping you guys from revising, is the sheer volume of work needing to be done. And that's a really hard one because it's like, that's not really a distraction. It's like, it's a problem. How do you fix that problem? How do you create obstacles or almost avoid the obstacles to that problem? And it's very true. At medical school, you have so much material to work with and you just don't know where to start. And a lot of the time, a lot of the material in the PowerPoint slides is like way more than what you actually need to know for your exam. So in that case, the first step is to make a plan. Now, obviously, if your exam is in a week or a couple weeks, this is not the best time to be making a plan, okay? You should have made this plan a couple weeks ago. So I'd say like a month before your exam, make a plan. And you need to make a plan that you can follow through with, okay? I almost think of it as like a diet plan, okay? A lot of people make really ambitious diet plans, okay? You're gonna have like no carbs, just vegetables and whatnot, like protein, okay? And that's not sustainable, okay? That's really hard to stick to. So don't make a revision plan where it's like, I'm gonna study 8 hours with 2 breaks, okay? Because this is not gonna happen. You know what? Good for you if it does happen, but let's be honest, okay? Doing that for a month is surely not great for your health. So make a plan that you can stick to. And that plan, in my eyes, so let's talk about like my plan, right? So sometimes I'll wake up really early in the morning, like 5, 6 o'clock. Sometimes I'll wake up at 8 o'clock. Now my goal is that straight after breakfast or whatever, like straight after your morning little refreshments, you go straight into work and you just work, okay? And then you break for lunch. So that's like 3 hours that you've worked, you go into lunch. And after lunch, some people find it really hard to go back to work. Okay, some people will just stay down for lunch and then procrastinate, and then it's just not very good motivation. So in that case, I want you to really push yourself and get yourself back upstairs into your room so that you can revise. That's one thing. Now, again, you revise for another few hours and then it's dinner. And then maybe you want to take the evening off, okay? At least for, if your exam is a month away, you can probably do like very hardcore revision maybe a couple weeks before your exam. But before that, maybe decide to take evenings off. So you have that motivation throughout the day that, you know what, I'm going to work really hard up until dinner time. And then after that, I'm going to have this time where I can chill and I can just relax and spend time with my family or my friends and play video games or whatever, right? So make a plan that you can follow through with and that's sustainable for you and something that you can achieve for 1 month. And you kind of have to believe in your plan as well. It sounds a bit rubbish, right? But you need to, everyone says believe in yourself, right? But believe in your plan and you need to make it work, okay? And it's only going to work if you stick to it. If you don't stick to it, it's not going to work. So motivation is one of those things, it comes in a cycle, okay? And you want to get into the good swing of that cycle. It's almost like you get this motivation, you work, that gives you more motivation, then you do more work, okay? What we don't want is like the procrastination cycle, which kind of goes, you procrastinate, you don't work, and then you procrastinate more, okay? Don't get into that negative cycle because it's really hard to get out of it. So try to get into that motivation cycle, tell yourself you can do it, and then follow through with your plan and just trust the process, okay? Even though sometimes it will feel really hard and some days it will think, oh, I'm getting nowhere with this. But genuinely, if you do something for a month, you are getting somewhere with it. And that might not be obvious at first, but when it comes to exams, I really do hope that the results will show you that that plan was working. So that's that. Now, if you guys have any other questions, please put them in the chat. I'd love to kind of answer what else distracts you from revising. I'm going to go back to that Instagram post that I put up a few weeks ago, Instagram story, where I asked you guys, and I'm going to see what else was distracting you, and hopefully we can address a few more of those things. Okay, so Zoe's asking, for Edinburgh Year 1, what kind of things do we have to know for the immunity module, and are the questions clinical? So, talking specifically about Edinburgh then, the questions are clinical. They're very case-based, and there is very little of there's almost like no questions that ask what's this, or what does this symptom correlate to, or how does this work? It's not questions like that. It is all case based, and you'll be surprised because you would think that first year medicine, you don't need to know that much of the clinical side to things, but actually you do, and it's all about applying the knowledge rather than just kind of knowing it. So I would focus on your broad concepts and trying to link different areas together. And the immunity module in particular, I'm not gonna lie, I can't remember most of it, but they don't go into an awful lot of detail because immunology is an incredibly complicated topic. And as a first year, you just need to know the basics. So like your different types of white blood cell, your lymphocytes, cytokines, like your inflammatory processes, that sort of thing. But really, I mean, other than that, I wouldn't really worry too much. If you're looking for a resource that can help you to revise and give you exam style questions, first thing would be to, if you're at Edinburgh gives like weekly quizzes. Definitely go and do those weekly quizzes. They are the closest thing that you will get to the real exam. So there's that. Then there's also the formative exam as well. So make sure you're doing the formative exam, which is this practice style questions exam, for those of you who are not at Edinburgh. And that's also really useful as well. Again, I wouldn't worry too much about the specific details. Just kind of know your broad concepts. And yes, you should be able to tie it into clinical knowledge based stuff, which might come as a shock. But you do need to be able to do that. Any other questions, guys? So yeah, I'm gonna go back to that Instagram story and see if I can find something. I mean, I'm here to help you guys, right? So if you want this session to be useful, you need to ask me questions. Otherwise, I will just run on and it might get a bit irrelevant for you. So yeah, so are the knowledge test 2 questions more clinical than the first semester then? Yeah. So to be honest, I don't know what your first semester exam was, and I can't really remember what it was for me either. But I would say that you need to be able to tie into the clinical. They will very rarely ask you, what does this mean, or what is this? As I said before, it is all asking you things tied into a clinical perspective. So I'm trying to think of like an example, right? If you, I don't know, like maybe at Edinburgh, for your knowledge to clinical practice, for example, right? It's all good like learning about heart attacks and MIs and knowing like what that is, but you need to be able to identify an MI on a patient in a clinical scenario. So you need to know that this patient comes in with crushing chest pain, and when you see that, your mind is directed to a heart attack. But then they might carry that on and then ask you about a drug that could be given for the heart attack. So there's a few linking things, if you know what I mean. And I think that there was some of that in your semester 1 exam. Again, I'm not too sure what exactly you guys got asked, but things like that, just like linking concepts is what they're looking for. Yeah, like on my Instagram, someone had asked that someone was actually saying that my brain isn't allowing me to revise. I have zero self-discipline. And I think that's like being really hard on yourself. And sometimes, yeah, that's good. Like, be hard on yourself if you know you're not being productive, because obviously I would not take it easy if I didn't know how to revise and if I didn't know how to do this exam, right? But again, as I was talking about self-discipline before, um, give yourself a reward. I think like our reward pathways work very effectively. And this is what I was saying when I was talking about having a sustainable study plan. This was all about giving yourself a reward at the end of the day, or saying that I'm going to take Sundays off. Because you almost need to differentiate your playtime and your work time. And once you do that, it becomes a lot easier to focus on the thing you're doing. Because sometimes when you start like playing in your work time, you feel guilty. You don't enjoy that playtime either, and it becomes pointless. Like, that time is just wasted. Whereas if you know that this is your acceptable time to play and this is your acceptable time to chill and relax, then actually your relaxing is more effective, and you know that this is your time to study, then your studying will be more effective. So you need to be able to differentiate between the two. And I hope that that can help you to improve your self-discipline. So yeah, another one was, well, I don't even know how to study and I'm still looking for this. So, I mean, how do you study? That's such a deep question, right? How do we study? I'm trying to answer that. Like, okay, I have a bit of a theory. Okay, first of all, again, you need to identify. Identify what sort of a learner are you. Okay, and when I say that, you've got your three classical, you've got your visual, you've got your auditory, and you've got your kinesthetic, okay? So for me, I would say I'm a mixture between a visual learner and a kinesthetic learner. So I like to use, I like pictures, I like diagrams, I like flow charts, and I also like to draw things out myself and use my hands and practically learn things, okay? Now, that's like one way that you could go down, right? You need to identify what sort of learner are you and then apply that. So how am I going to apply that? Let's say I'm studying anatomy. How do I study anatomy? Okay, let me tell you my setup. So my setup's going to be my computer screen in the middle. I'm going to have a pad of paper. I'm going to have my tablet, and I've got my whiteboard on the wall. Okay, this is going to be my studying setup. So have a setup, identify what sort of a learner you are, and merge the two to come up with something that you can practically use and learn from. Now, let's stick to anatomy as our example. Let's say on my screen I've got the anatomy PowerPoints or the anatomy worksheets or whatever from my university. That's the core content that I'm going to be tested on. Now, what am I going to do with this? So let's say I'm doing something about the shoulder, okay? If I'm doing shoulder, I'm going to look at it on my computer. Then I'm going to use my anatomy app, okay? So Complete Anatomy 21, I did a review of it a few months ago, so you guys can go check that out. But it's a brilliant anatomy app, really recommend it, a great resource. So I'm going to use my university slides, and I'm going to combine that with the anatomy app. And I'm going to pick through things, and I'm going to label things, and I'm going to have a look and explore that human anatomy on this app. So it's almost like a 3D model, because I don't have like a shoulder model, going around with me, do I? So I'm going to use this app to help me picture things and look at it in a 3D way. Then comes a pad of paper. So then I'm going to try and draw this stuff, and I'm going to label it myself. I'm going to cover it up, draw, label, cover, draw, label, right? And then I'm going to pretend to be a teacher, and I'm going to go to my whiteboard this time. So now all this stuff that I had at my desk, I'm going to leave that, and I'm going to go to my whiteboard. And this time I'm going to pretend that I'm teaching this lesson. So I will draw out the diagram again, and I will talk through each different bone or ligament or nerve or artery, whatever I'm studying at that time. And I think that's a really important concept, okay? As a student, it can be very overwhelming to study, and I've experienced that, and I experience it maybe even every day. But as soon as you put yourself in, put yourself in the perspective of a teacher, you begin to see that you don't have to be this clueless student anymore. You can be someone who knows what they're talking about, and that feeling is so good when you know what you're talking about. And I mean, if you don't have anyone available at the moment, then you can literally just teach to a wall. That's a bit crazy, right? But you can do that and it's effective. But if you have like younger siblings or flatmates or something, maybe you can all like teach each other something and it's a really nice environment and you feel like you're doing good to yourself and the other person by teaching them this thing. So teaching is a great way. And if you want, even come up with like a study group, like get a few friends together, make a study group and teach each other topics, make revision posters, use whiteboards, that sort of thing. Be practical. You don't have to, studying doesn't have to be about sitting down in one place for like 8 hours straight. Studying can be about you walking about, using whiteboards, apps. You have so many resources nowadays. It's not just your pen and paper textbook style anymore. And I hope that through my channel as well, you've seen that there is so many resources you can use. Now, we have some questions in the chat as well. So one question is, any tips on how to focus? I lose focus after half an hour, which is really annoying. That is pretty annoying, isn't it? How do we focus? Again, I think the hardest part is to get into revising, okay? It's almost like, when you go away on a break and then you find it really hard to just come back and get back into that zone of revising. But then the thing is, when you're in that zone, you go really well for a while and then you'll lose focus again and then you find it really hard to get back in. And one technique that I would recommend for that is to literally just start doing something, okay? I'll give you an example. If you're like writing an essay, literally just start writing anything. Even if it's like really like crappy stuff, just start writing and eventually it will turn into something that is valuable for your essay. And at that point, you can go back and edit all the crappy stuff that you wrote in the beginning. So my thing is literally like engage your brain, get into the work, and at that point, hopefully, you will get into the zone and what you do will become valuable. So that's one way. Another way is to leave your revision on a cliffhanger. What I mean by this is that let's say you say, I'm gonna go down for lunch or whatever, right? And you're really afraid that you're not going to be able to self-discipline yourself enough to come back up to revise. Okay, so how do you conquer that? And the way I would say is leave your revision at a cliffhanger point. So cliffhanger point is something like, let's say you were revising the shoulder. I don't want you to finish revising the shoulder and then go for lunch. I want you to have like a little bit left of the shoulder to revise, and then go for lunch. Because you will know that when you come back, you're just continuing from where you left off. Whereas if you complete like learning about the shoulder and then go for lunch, you have that anxiety now of trying to decide what it is that you're going to study when you come back up. And that in itself is a waste of energy and a waste of time and an opportunity for procrastination. So leave your revision on a cliffhanger as well when you're going away from your revision space. I hope that was useful. The next thing that I have is, do you know of any question banks, specifically when they give you symptoms and have to figure out what the pathology is? So, okay, question banks are really hard to find, especially if you're in the UK system. When you search up question banks online, you will find American resources. I'm going to tell you that right now. That's really like annoying. One resource, however, I would recommend, it's actually my previous video and it's something that I have been using a lot, is Med School Bootcamp. They are brilliant for anatomy and pretty good for questions as well. They do sort of USMLE step 1 type questions, and it is case-based. And actually, a lot of UK medical students will eventually go on to do the USMLE step 1, which is like the American exam for if you want to practice as a doctor in America. So that exam is similar to the sort of level that year 1 and year 2 preclinical is at Edinburgh. So you can try the questions on Med School Bootcamp. Now, other question banks, I'm not sure for other universities, but for Edinburgh, Peerwise is a good resource. So Peerwise is where your peers, your other people in your year, they make questions and they put them onto this website, basically. And some of them, there's risks to it because obviously it's peers who are making it and there could be mistakes and errors in it. But for the most part, they are quite good and quite relevant to your course, and they're multiple choice. That's another thing actually I should mention. So again, like most medical school exams are multiple choice or best short answer questions. So when you're looking for resources, try and find multiple choice questions so it's like the same type of format. But yeah, like peer-wise it's good, med school bootcamp is good. Do any like questions or quizzes that the university gives as well. They're always good. I'm yet to find any other good question banks, if I'm being honest. Like I've seen people use kind of Anki flashcards, and I've seen people talk about Quizlet and things like that. I mean, if you find a good deck, go for it, use it if it's useful. But for me personally, I find it really hard to find a deck that is directly relevant to my course, and that can be a bit misleading. Also, if you try and make your own Anki flashcards, if you try and make your own Quizlet cards or whatever, I think that's really time consuming, and sometimes it's not the best use of your time. So I don't use Anki or things like Quizlet, but I have heard that they can be good. Okay, next one is any tips for learning anatomy? Definitely failing the spot test. Well, Adam, if I'm being honest, like I've only done open book exams, right? And it's been what 2.5 years. So I'm also very panicking about how I'm gonna do these in-person anatomy exams and OSCEs and knowledge exams and all that. For anatomy specifically, as I said, my method is to have my computer screen, have my 3D anatomy app, then look at cadaveric questions and cadaveric images, which is where med school bootcamp excels. Genuinely, their question bank for anatomy is fantastic, and it's at the level that you need to know. So go to med school bootcamp. Go in their med school bootcamp because they have different bootcamps. So go in the med school one, and you get a 3-day free trial. So the 3-day free trial, it begins automatically. So don't worry, you don't have to like give your card details or anything like that. And just like go to the foundational courses part and go into the anatomy, and they have cadaveric question banks, and that is exactly what you need. So it's all good kind of exploring the models on your 3D anatomy app and drawing diagrams and whatever, but you need to be able to identify on cadavers, which is the hard part, because I don't know about you, but I don't really have a dead body lying about. So that can be very hard. And Med School Bootcamp has a really good question bank. So go over there and use it. That's what I would recommend, and that's what I'm using as well. Yeah, the cliffhanger technique sounds very smart, can't lie. Well, I tried to sound smart. I don't know if I am smart. We'll have to see when I get my exam results back. But yeah, so if you guys have any